For those who don't know me, my name's Martin Leahy. I look after Babcock Mission Systems. So probably the best part of Babcock, or I can say that, is the bit where we look after intelligence, weapons, communications, digital twins, all the great stuff that we do. Ex-apprentice at BAE Systems, so I was an apprentice at BAE Systems many years ago in Southway, and ended up in Babcock around 20 years ago, 18 years ago now actually, where I've done great things, where such interesting things from building vehicles, working on weapon systems, designing all sorts of fun and interesting stuff that we deploy to keep this country safe. So great company and a great place to work. So it's great to see so many people here tonight. I've only met in 2D. It's been a bit weird over the last 18 months, not meeting many people, but it did lead to a bit of a faux pas moment for me the other day, where my 2D render version of a person was not the 3D person I spoke to. And I embarrassed myself by talking about the joys of military comms, where they politely told me, I don't know who you are and what you're talking about. So if I prod you tonight, just to make sure it's all real. Before I introduce Ruth, I would like to say a few words on why PMG matters to Babcock. As a company, we're not always acting in a way that supports our local community as well as we could. I hope going forward we'll play our part in helping the city and its economy thrive, be it by supporting the Freeport, making our supply chain more local, or taking on more apprentices and giving them skills which they may lead to careers one day in some of the companies represented here today. It's on that note of the power of this community touched me recently. Some of you may remember Steve organised a talk by a company called Ingenuity on the approach to solving the engineering challenge and attracting a diverse engineering skill set into the industry. This has led to a series of discussions in working with Plymouth City Council. We're developing an apprentice recruitment pilot based on gamification for NEETs. The aim is to build a world based in Plymouth where we can solve puzzles, build capabilities, and automatically put them forward straight on our apprenticeship screen based on the data we've observed. So it was a really powerful connection made at this, one of the monthly talks, and it's led to some very interesting stuff, which is quite exciting for us. So these connections do matter, and they make a difference, not just for our companies, but the people we employ and their family and friends. So Mike and Steve, I thank you for making this community work. Without your hard work, it would not be possible. Right, on to the main event. And I have to say, when you read Ruth's bio, you wonder what you did with your life. And I think I would need 10 lives just to achieve half of what you've achieved, Ruth. Not only has she had an amazing career in Royal Dutch Shell, where she's career spanned 37 years in R&D, strategy, supply chain, M&A, she also found time to gain a Master's in Advanced Mathematics from the University of Cambridge. In her spare time, she was patron of Women in Defence, chair of Powerful Woman, and a trustee of Windsor Leadership Trust. She's held non-exec direct roles in Rolls-Royce and Keller Group. She's also a senior independent director for Associated British Foods and supported the COVID Recovery Commission as a commissioner. And in her spare time, she represented Babcock as chair, where she rushed from London today at our half-year results. She's an inspirational senior leader and someone you can see from her bio cares passionate about advancing diversity in the boardroom, preparing our future leaders for the challenge ahead, and advancing women opportunities in defence. It's not often I say this, but wow. I give you Ruth Carney.
Good evening. Martin, thank you very much for those kind words, which I shall now attempt in some way to live up to. And I would say I appreciate, Martin, you talking quite candidly about maybe us not always having supported the community as much as we might have done. I hope you'll take away from what I'm going to say that we believe in that working with the community to promote our joint futures is absolutely part of what Babcock is focused on at the moment. So as you say, I'm chair of Babcock. You in Plymouth probably know Babcock by this, the Devonport Dockyard. And that's our biggest site anywhere. I thought I'd start this by just talking about my reaction when I received the invitation to come and give this lecture, which is quite a few weeks ago now. And I would say it took me probably a very short time to reflect on it and think I'm really keen to do this. And if I think about why, I think it's really in the 3 words, Plymouth Manufacturers Group. So first of all, Plymouth. So Plymouth, as I say, it's the home of our most important site. It's a city with an incredible maritime and industrial history. And it is really the major economic centre for the Southwest, a very important region. Output, I think that our numbers were about right, but I about tied up, Mike, because I was listening carefully, but about 5 billion output, something like, and and almost 10% of England's entire marine industry in Plymouth. Plymouth has the highest level of manufacturing in the south, along the south coast, with 50% more jobs in the sector than the national average, and I think that sounds like the same statistics, and with a high GVA per head of people working in the sector. So you can see I've done my homework as well. And and as we've also just heard, so Plymouth matters to manufacturing, and actually manufacturing really matters to Plymouth. And why manufacturing is particularly of importance to me is that I very much believe as we come out of the pandemic, that industry and manufacturing has a key role to play in being a core driver of economic recovery and ensuring that we can get back to the sort of levels of growth and productivity that we had before and hopefully beyond. So manufacturing is very important. Thirdly, I mean, as a sector, I think manufacturing is all about collaboration. So we collaborate with our colleagues in the organisations, we collaborate with our customers, we collaborate with our suppliers. Collaboration is what we do. And I believe very strongly that through working together, we can solve pretty much any challenge that we face. And that's why I think this group is such a great organisation, because it is about people coming together to solve problems, to create and drive opportunities. And a lot of what I want to talk about is collaboration and working together on opportunities. So Plymouth Manufacturers Group, what's not to want to come and join you for? Except that it is December, so risk of winter storms, who would have known that Barra would have struck? Risk of rail delays, yep, had that today. And of course our new friend Omicron, of which we'll all be finding out a lot more later. So if I could go on. So this is what I'm going to talk about. So something about Babcock, something about Devonport. Then I'm going to talk about the COVID Recovery Commission that Martin mentioned, because that comes very much to the importance of business, the role of purpose-led business. And I'm going to talk about where Babcock is at in really thinking about its role in society and community, which is what's driving our approach. And then I'm going to build on that and talk about what we're doing on ESG, environment, social and governance. And then come back to talking about local action, the developments of Babcock in Plymouth, and then talk about what we might be able to do together. So this is Babcock at a glance. So correct in terms of when we were founded. So 1891, the company was founded, although it was a very, very different company then from what it's made up of today. So we have a leading naval business. We provide value-add services, and that's in the UK, France, Australasia, Canada, and South Africa. And we also operate in and export to some additional markets as well. In terms of scale, so we're over 30,000 people across 25 countries. We have revenue of a bit over £4 billion, and we have an order book and pipeline of around 30 billion, so quite a significant scale. And in the middle of this slide, you can see the 4 sectors that we operate as. So this is based on the activities of our customers in the different sectors. So we operate as marine, aviation, nuclear, and land. And around that, 4 enablers that we see as very important in driving our future prospects: technology, training, infrastructure, and global growth. So then, next slide, we are evolving at the moment. And I think for those of us in Babcock, and there are a few here tonight, evolving probably seems like a bit of an understatement. It feels a bit more than that. We call it a transformation. And we're really looking to change ourselves to be ready for the significant change in the security and defence sectors in terms of their priorities, the technology and so on, and also the relentless march of digitisation. So we've got our 4 sectors, but we've also selected 3 focus markets, 3 key focus markets, which are these 3 shown on the slide. So the UK naval business, which you will be probably quite familiar with. So we own sites like Devonport. We also own Rosyth, where we're building the Type 31 frigates. And in UK Naval, we have really deep expertise in critical engineering, and we have very strong relationships with our customers. Then we've got UK value-added services. And this is really what we do in the UK in the land, aviation and nuclear sectors. And just to give a little idea of what those are, so in land we support and manage all of the Army's 50,000 vehicles. In the RAF, in aviation, we support the RAF, so we provide training to pilots and we provide runway side support for their activities and operations. And in civil nuclear, we are the biggest single employer in that sector, and we're actually the only UK-owned company working in civil nuclear, so quite significant business with a lot of opportunities. And then in the international space, so I said we've got strong positions in Canada, Australasia and South Africa. And we're also growing our presence in France, where, for example, we provide training to the French Air Force. And then this slide also talks to the strengths we have in each of those markets and the growth opportunities. And in many ways, our task is to take those strengths and see how we use them to maximize our opportunities, building on those growth drivers. So to do all of that, earlier this year, we set a set of strategic priorities, which is the next slide. And this is very much what we're tracking now. It was discussed at our results presentation this morning, the progress on each of these. So you may have read in the press about our portfolio. So having become very clear that we are a defence, aerospace and security business, we're looking at all our portfolio of businesses to look at which fit that focus and which don't. So we have got a number of disposals that are going on, and so far this year we've secured 3 disposals which have generated around 400 million of proceeds. So that is going very well to plan. The second one is implement a new operating model, and this is to make us a much more efficient and effective business. But I don't know, when I hear words like that, I think that it's a bit management speak, and operating model, what does that ever really mean? So, I mean, this is reorganizing, and above all, it's about reducing the number of layers in our management system. So we've had, in some parts of the organization, we've had 14 management layers. So we are taking out a lot of layers with the idea that we'll be much simpler, and we'll have a much better line of sight right through the organization so that people really know what's happening on the, at the critical level. Much shorter lines of communication up and down. And through all of that, we aim to be much more flexible and much quicker to respond to changes that are happening in our markets. And then linked to that, the third on the list here, so that is linked to a new people strategy. So in the past, our 4 sectors each had its own approach to resources, talent, and so on. We've now launched a single people strategy right across Babcock, which will put a much greater focus on talent development. It'll enable us to share resources across the whole company, to really share innovation and best practice. So very, very important underpin to the operating model. ESG I'll come back to. And on exploring growth opportunities, so we've had quite a bit of early success this year. So we secured our first order for Arrowhead 140, which is the export version of the Type 31 frigate. That's to Indonesia. We've signed a memorandum of understanding with Ukraine to support them in upgrading their naval capability. We're working closely with the French government on furthering our activities there, and we've just won, building out our presence in Australia, we've won a contract for we've been declared first preferred bidder for high-frequency comms. So a lot going on in the international space as well. So that is a whistle-stop tour of Babcock. And now I'm going to talk about Devonport, the largest naval facility in Western Europe. And we certainly know, as owners of Devonport, that we are custodians of an asset which is of great international strategic importance. That has been around for a very long time. So this slide shows the history and sort of key points in time through the history. So more than 300 years ago, Edmund Dummer, who was then the surveyor of the Navy, selected this area to build the new Royal Dockyard, and that was in the time of William III. I want to make a comment about this slide. So this is a bit embarrassing as an engineering company, but it's not to scale. So left to right spans 331 years. The left half of the slide is 250 years, and the right half is 81 years. And I can only think this is because the three pink blobs on the right are representing the 15 years of Babcock ownership, and I think it was to make that look like a more significant part of the history. But on a serious note, as you can imagine, not much of Dummer's original dockyard is still in existence today. So Devonport has been continually upgraded and re-equipped to meet the ever-changing needs of the Royal Navy. And if I go on to the next slide, just to make that very visual. So I'd like to introduce you to two vessels, both called HMS Vanguard. So on the left, in the painting on the left, and the vessel on the left is HMS Vanguard. This was a 51-metre, 1,609-ton ship of the line that served in the Napoleonic Wars under Admiral Lord Nelson some 200 years ago. Painting actually shows HMS Vanguard just after she'd been struck by a gale and was being rescued by the ship on the right in the picture. On the right of the slide is HMS Vanguard, the 150-metre long, 15,900-ton lead boat of the Vanguard class, which is our current class of ballistic missile-armed submarines which maintain the continuous at-sea deterrent. So these two HMS Vanguard vessels, apart from the same name, so 200 years apart, but they have both been repaired and maintained at Devonport. And I think it's a very visual demonstration of the just enormous change in technology, which says why so much change has to be done at Vanguard to equip the facilities as changes occur in the vessels that we need to serve and support. And I'm very pleased to say, and I'm sure you will all know this, but in the coming years, Devonport is having another significant upgrade and revamp as we work together with the MOD to prepare Devonport for the next classes of vessel that the Royal Navy will be operating. And the next slide shows a bit more about the longevity of our work. And you can see that even if we sort of stood still and didn't really work on doing different things, we would have work going on in Devonport until around 2070. This is a long-term business. The bottom two, you can see that as the work on the Type 23 class will come to an end, but then with the Type 26 class, we can expect to see ongoing work in the frigate facilities through out towards 2050. And then the 5 rows at the top are showing all the submarines. And you can see that that's going out to 2070 and beyond. And that's as we currently maintain those classes that are currently in service, and then we prepare for and maintain the next generation, the new classes, and then eventually we decommission the retired classes. So a whole future pathway of ongoing work. And of course it's these changes that are driving all the work that we are going to be doing in upgrading the site. So I think to summarise, and looking at a picture like this, there's a really bright future for Devonport and Babcock, because this will certainly be growing our order book. And what I want to talk to you about tonight is the opportunities that can bring. So Babcock has an important role to play in Plymouth, and Plymouth has an important part to play in Babcock with all of this future ahead of us. So now a change of topic. So the COVID Recovery Commission really shaped some of my thinking about the importance of collaboration and the importance of the role that business plays. So it was a great privilege to be a part of it, and it was a business-led commission. We got together and did all the work the second half of last year and up to April this year. And we were businesses working to look at what recommendations we could make on policies that would secure the recovery from COVID, with an aim that the economy should become stronger, fairer, and more resilient. And we were recognizing that the role of business in that is absolutely critical. So business has to work with government to make sure that policy recommendations are actually workable. then we need to be the engine of employment, of investment, of innovation, and so on and so on. So business and the role is absolutely important, absolutely critical. And then looking at all the inequality that is an ongoing issue in the UK, how can businesses through that really address and help reduce inequality? So our final report was published in April, and it set out ways that business could really drive the economic recovery, supporting government, and also through that really tackle issues like ongoing productivity issues in the UK, like the need to address digitization, the need to address decarbonisation, and so on. So, the green recovery very much front of mind there. We looked very much at the imperative to focus on mental health issues, which are so prevalent and more prevalent now. And one of the pieces of work we did really showed that there are deprived communities right across the country. So it's not about the sort of the north having a whole band of deprived communities and not elsewhere. Even the richest parts of the country have really deprived communities within them. And that really led us to recognise the importance of acting locally here. It has to be local solutions and organisations working together locally that are going to find the solutions. And we thought about the absolute importance here of purpose-led business. So businesses that are going to step up and really think about their role in supporting the whole of this economic recovery, where, to my mind, purpose-led business means businesses that, looking at like Section 172 of the Governance Code, directors of companies must focus on the success of the company, but defining success broadly. So success not just about shareholders and the financial bottom line, success in terms of creating value for all stakeholders. And in that context, and all the work that was going on in Babcock with the new people strategy and the new operating model, we realised that it was really important for Babcock to think about its purpose and to define again what is our role in creating value for society. So I'm going to share a bit about our new Babcock purpose, which is on the next slide. And I'd just like to say, you probably think, oh, yes, very nice, create a safe and secure world together. I think the important thing is, what does it mean for us? So create is about innovating, it's about influencing, it's about shaping things. Safe is about the absolute priority we put on safety in all of our work. Secure is about the critical services that we deliver in our work to customers. And then together talks about the collaboration both within Babcock, so we're looking to work much more collaboratively across the organisation, but then collaborating with all of our stakeholders outside as well, and that's local, national and international. And that's sort of one level, but then you can unpeel this. So safe and secure world, if we are creating a safe and secure world, that means that by definition we must be doing all that we need to do to protect the environment. So that brings in ESG. If we're creating a safe and secure world, that means we must be creating a safe and secure place for our people. So that means an environment where people are respected and valued, and so on and so on. So there's, you can keep unpeeling this, and it really represents all of the things that we think are important. And then the next slide shows the principles that we've developed to go alongside this. And I think you're probably thinking at this point, this is a very weird thing for the chair of Babcock to come and talk about to a group of manufacturers. Interestingly, at our results presentation in the stock exchange this morning, the chief executive actually spoke to this slide at some length. And he spoke about how each of these principles was brought to bear to win the Australian high-frequency comms contract that we've just been involved with. And these principles are deliberately not straightforward. So if you think about it, be curious, to me, means keep asking lots and lots of questions. Whereas think outcomes means cut to the chase and get on with action. And so you can start a whole conversation in the organisation about, what does this mean? What does it mean to be curious and be focused on outcomes? What does it mean to be kind and to be courageous? Because sometimes they are, two sides of the same thing. And so this really is being used to really drive change and start to create the culture that we want. And in many ways, delivering the future of Babcock, getting that culture right is, we think, the most important thing.
For over 130 years, we have helped to defend nations, protect communities, and save lives all around the world. But we know there is more we need to do. People, populations, our planet, they are all at risk. They need us more than ever. And we are determined to play our part as one united team to create a safe and secure world together. This is our purpose. It's why we exist and what we always strive for. It drives every idea, every conversation, every action. And with our committed people, collaborative partnerships, exceptional engineering expertise, and incredible strengths in defense, security, and aerospace, we are changing how we live and work for the better. Together, we are creating a safe and secure world for everyone. We are Babcock.
We have created an ESG charter, a sustainability charter for the organisation. And this wheel, which shows for each of E, S and G, what are the most important elements of that for Babcock and for our business. And to this slide, I'll just say a little bit about governance, which is shown in blue. And I think that sometimes you think environment, social and governance feels like the slightly dull part that you've got to do. But actually, in many ways, governance is absolutely the underpin for everything we want to achieve. And it's really like the sort of guarantor of integrity for us as a company. And governance absolutely has to go right through the organisation, but it has to start at the top. And so since I took over as chair, I've been making quite a number of changes to the sort of top-level corporate governance, driven very much by the fact that as we change the business, as we change the operating model, as we change our purpose and principles and the opportunities we go after, governance has to match that. It has to be kind of aligned and fit. And so I'm just going to give a couple of examples. So I'm looking at board committees. So I've changed the focus and accountability of the board committees. I've been changing the board agenda. And I've also been doing some sort of changeover of people in the board. And that's given me the opportunity to bring in some people with some really different and new expertise for us. And just as an example, so we now have Carl-Peter Forster on our board. So he has an extraordinary pedigree as a manufacturer. So he was with he's automotive. He was with General Motors. He was the CEO of BMW in South Africa. He was the group chief executive of Tata Motors. And so by bringing him onto the board, we've sort of brought an injection of really deep knowledge about what excellence in manufacturing looks like, which I see really bringing new questions and new challenge into asking us how do we think about things and where could we be doing things differently. So that has been a fantastic example. And then the next slide shows, I'll use that just to talk a bit about environment and social. So on the environment, so we are very committed to minimising our the impact of our operations on the environment, which really means cleaner energy, recycling and reducing waste. And we have this year made a public formal commitment to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2040, and that's scope 1 and scope 2. And we're now going through all of the detail with setting science-based targets and developing all the plans that we will need then to really drive the action through on that. I think it's very important for anything to do with purpose or ESG. It needs to be really sort of driven right through what you do. And I think what doesn't work, and what was probably the approach in the past, was you'd have your strategy and then you'd have an ESG on the side, doing it for compliance on a contract or something like that. So what we're doing now actually on all of these, but as an example, when we're looking at new contracts and new business that we're bidding for, we're thinking right at the beginning, how do we plan in real progress on environment or social within the way we approach this contract? So it's not a compliance issue at all. It's actually built into the whole strategy for each of our business. And as a contracting business, our business really is the set of the programs that we're running. So I think that's very, very fundamental. And I've said that we're doing a lot of planning, but we're also looking really at the sort of actions that we can be taking right now, because we want to be making a difference quickly. And it's incredibly important for people, the staff in our organisation, who feel very passionately about this, and they want to see what are we doing in Babcock to start moving the dial on climate change. And then on social, so social for us is very much about people and about communities. Communities I'm going to talk more about, but it's really, the message is just that, for Babcock to thrive, we need our communities where we operate to thrive. So a lot of focus on that right through the organisation now. And for people, so I'm sure as with your businesses as well, so safety, absolutely paramount. And you see on the slide in the middle some comments about activities we're doing to really re-energise our focus on safety right through the organisation. A lot going on at Devonport. And it's also about general well-being. So for staff to feel, as I've said, respected and valued, for them to have good development opportunities, really focusing on diversity and inclusion. And I would say that on diversity and inclusion, we've made our commitments and we've set targets now. And I would say that we have finally recognised that we can't hide behind the excuses of, well, there aren't diverse people with the skills and backgrounds we need. We've got to make it happen. And so we're really thinking about how to make a change on diversity. We have said on gender that we will achieve 30% women in senior roles by 2025 from 21% today. And we will achieve 30% right across the organisation by 2030, and that's from 19% today. So we've got a lot to do. And we're also working now on developing and getting clarity on what we're going to do on all other aspects of diversity, including race and disability and so on. So recognising that all aspects of diversity are really important. So I would say, to summarise, that I think that being purpose-led is really important for businesses, and I think it builds this very solid foundation. But to maximise the opportunities from this, it's really about working together and working collaboratively. So I'm now going to talk about local action, developments in Plymouth for Babcock, and then talk about how we collaborate and cooperate together. So next slide, local action. And I'm actually going to go back to a year and a half ago in the early days of the COVID pandemic. Because I think we saw some incredible examples of businesses and different organisations coming together to take action to address COVID-related challenges. So the one on the left was the UK ventilator challenge, which we as Babcock stepped up to. We worked with businesses from across the country, and in response to the challenge from the government, we put forward a proposal and went from proposal to concept in 5 days. We went to a first unit built for trials in the NHS in 58 days. And by day 87, the team had produced a working ventilator. So just extraordinary speed with lots of different organisations all working really, really effectively together. Now, of course, thankfully, the demand for ventilators turned out to be nothing like as great as had been envisaged. But I think nonetheless it was an incredible example of the power of collaboration behind a really compelling common cause. And then on a local level, so we were very proud in Babcock that the team from Devonport installed a bespoke isolation cockpit shield for Devon Air Ambulance so that they could then operate a COVID-secure service, which meant that they could get back in the air delivering emergency services. And I think it was that same team, and probably with some of the businesses represented here tonight, who also produced 5,000 3D printed face masks for local frontline health workers. So just really powerful examples. And I think always the challenge is, that's what we can do when there's a crisis. How can we have that same spirit of common cause and collaboration working together just because there are some great opportunities that we could be working on? And then I've got a slide next showing some of the things that Babcock does in Plymouth to support our community. So we support a lot of charities and good causes. We are patrons, proud patrons of the Devon Chamber of Commerce, and we support the Armed Forces Day. We are sponsoring the Port of Plymouth Gallery at the Box. We support quite a number of local sporting organisations. We support been pleased to support the Mayflower 400 commemoration. And as well as those sort of larger scale corporate sponsorships, we also have at Babcock, at Devonport, the Community Investment Group, which is staff within Devonport who get together a few times a year to review the various requests we come in for support from local good causes, local initiatives. And they decide how we can support them. And that might be with financial help, but also a lot with the time and skills of our apprentices and our graduates, and a lot of really exciting examples. They love doing it, and we very strongly support our people to go and do that sort of activity. Looking then at what's happening in Devonport. So I've said that we have a lot of development work ahead of us. So this is working collaboratively with the MOD, and the FMSP is the Future Maritime Support Programme, which is this joint programme now to prepare Devonport for this long future, preparing to service all these future classes of vessels. So it means building world-class facilities, it means upgrading existing facilities, and through all of that, we will focus on improving our productivity and also reducing waste. And so there's a lot of focus on sustainability alongside the development of the new facilities. And I think we are looking very much with all of this work that's coming at ways in which we can maximize collaboration and local opportunities for the wider city and businesses in the city. And we're looking, for example, at, so I was talking to Paul Foster from Devonport earlier, so about the way we contract. So when we're contracting with suppliers, how can we refresh that so that our approach is as helpful as possible to the various businesses who are supplying us? And then we're working, we've been very pleased to be involved with Plymouth City Council's Freeport bid and pleased to be named and included within the outline business case. So, and many other examples. I want to say a bit about talent. So we have around 7,000 people working on site, and you can see of that a significant number of apprentices and graduates. And we've heard already from you, Mike, the challenge that I think we all face in finding the suitably qualified and educated people. And we know that there are skills gaps, and then those skills gaps are changing because the skills that we need are changing. Just mentioned digitization as well, but in many ways the skills that we need are changing. And so, I mean, we're looking at what action we can do to increase life skills amongst young children and young adults locally. But I think this is an area where we need to look at doing much more. And it's an area where I think, we can really look, and I think that PMG already is, it's in one of the things on your website that you talk about doing, but working together to really look at how we can create the skills for Plymouth so that we then have the skills base that we can all then draw on. And I think it's an area where, you know, being imaginative and creative and really thinking about that, you know, I'm not particularly keen on leveling up as a phrase, but, you know, people from all backgrounds, how can we identify them and give them the right opportunities? So I loved your example of gamification, Martin, and asked you to tell me a bit more about that. So finally, last slide, the change agenda. So with all this work that we've got coming in Devonport and the increase and the opportunities for us, we are definitely looking to localize our supply base as far as possible. So we're aiming to bring more of that work to the city and the local region, the Southwest, and looking to really drive positive outcomes for the community through that. That will include, as I've said, a big focus on sustainability. And so that will be a big driver of investment. And that will include looking at ways that we can sort of green our supply chain. So working with suppliers to find ways of being more sustainable right through the supply chain. And examples of that, so we're very interested in driving and achieving zero single-use plastics right through the supply chain. And we are working with Plymouth City Council to provide green travel options for all of our teams, which is a problem that we have. And I haven't actually discussed this with the Devonport team, but I'm sure I believe that we are very interested in ideas from our suppliers. I mean, we aren't the custodians of good ideas, so very, very open to ideas and suggestions for improving sustainability through the supply chain. And I think, you know, just finally, so the pandemic has affected all businesses and all families, and it was a big challenge, and I think great examples of business working together. And I think moving forward, we have the enormous challenge of recovering economically, but then recovering and protecting the environment and delivering net zero for climate, to avoid the climate crisis. So a huge set of challenges ahead of us and another cause for us to work very strongly together. And I think that we, as the businesses of this city, have a great opportunity to work together to create this sustainable recovery through collaboration in Plymouth. And that can be supporting local charities and causes. It can be working together on skills and the skills pipeline. It can be working together on common issues, as the PMG does. I think that that is exactly the sort of model, together with university, together with the civic organisations. So I believe that by working together to bring more opportunity and prosperity to this city and the people, and opportunities for everyone, we can create a stronger Plymouth together. Thank you.